Inside this box are over 1,000 ants, and over the next 100 days, they will face the ultimate test. As this colony grows over time, they'll face 3 progressively more dangerous challenges along the way, and we'll get to watch how over 1,000 ants work together to bring down their prey, and how they will have to learn to adapt in order to survive. This video is sponsored by Aesthetic Ants. On day 1, I received this package containing many different ant species from around the world, but today we're focusing on one ant species in particular, known for their hyper-aggressive nature and their very painful and venomous sting. Here in front of me are 2 vials filled with thousands of angry ants and tiny eggs waiting to hatch, as well as everything that I'll be needing to care for them. This will be the ants' new outworld, where they will have their battles later in the video and explore to collect food and water. This nest will serve as the ants' new home, where they will have their future generations of workers and protect their precious queens. I securely attached the ants' new home to the outworld and added water to create humidity, making it more inviting for the colony to move in. The final step was adding an escape prevention barrier around the lip of the outworld. I nearly forgot this part, which would have been a disaster because these ants have a powerful sting, but let's just say that I got stung anyway later in the video. But there are some even crazier ants out there, with stings way worse than these, and I plan to get some. So if you want to see that, give this video a like, and let me know in the comments what your favorite ants are, and what species you would like to see on the channel. Now, it was time to move the ants into their new home, but it wasn't that simple. The vials holding the ants didn't fit into the outworld, and I wasn't about to risk the ants crawling around and getting stung, so I had no choice but to dump them straight in. As you can imagine, they didn't take very kindly to being dumped in, and the ants went into overdrive, swarming the outworld and scanning for threats. This was a clear reminder of how aggressive these ants are, and a preview of the challenges coming ahead. While the swarm spread through the outworld, a few workers discovered the new nest and cautiously began to explore. Once they decided the nest was safe, they signaled the rest of the colony to move in. I left the colony alone for a few hours, and by the end of the day, the entire colony had relocated into the new nest and settled down. It was the perfect size for them, but not for long. Over the next 30 days, the colony adjusted well and started to thrive. By day 30, their numbers had exploded, and they now had thousands of workers. The ants were swarming the outworld in search of food to feed their hungry larvae, so I figured it was now the perfect time to introduce their first challenge. And to start things off, I gave them some sugar to draw more ants into the outworld and prepare them for their first foe. Mealworms are big, and they have a tough outer shell, making them a decent starter challenge, but this was just the beginning. And when I dropped the mealworm inside, it didn't take long for the ants to zero in, and within seconds they were all over it, biting and stinging its legs, trying to immobilize it. But as the mealworm thrashed and twisted, the ants just kept coming back, climbing onto its back and swarming underneath, working together to try and pin it down. The ants began to search for a vulnerable spot in the mealworm's tough outer shell, and they began to chew near its leg joints where the armor was thinner, trying to inject venom in attempts to immobilize it. And eventually, the ants found a weak point, and that's when things escalated. They chewed straight through the mealworm's tough outer shell, breaking the surface, and while the mealworm was still alive and struggling, they began to feed. Within minutes, the venom had fully taken effect, and the mealworm now lay completely still. The battle was over. The colony had secured its first victory, and their larvae would soon feast. But there was no time to rest. The ants now needed to grow their numbers fast, because the next challenge would be far more dangerous and harder to bring down. But by day 60, a serious problem had emerged. The ants had chewed through part of their nest and tunneled behind the chambers. This compromised the ants' watering system, causing a leak that flooded through the entire nest. It was now clear that the ants needed a new home, bigger, better, and with more room for the next 2 challenges. A few months ago, the kind people over at Aesthetic Ants sent me a package with a variety of their products to test out. Included were some acrylic and lime as well as a few outworlds. The acrylic nest that I'm using today has 2 main sections. The nest up top and 3 separate water chambers underneath that let me control control exactly how much humidity that the ants get. I have a 10% discount code linked in the description, so if you see anything that you like in this video, be sure to check them out. With the nest now ready, it was time to move the colony, but the ants made this especially difficult. Most of them had crammed themselves into the tiny space between the nest and the outworld, since it was the only part of the nest that was still dry. My plan seemed simple enough. Unscrew the old nest from the outworld, drop that nest into the new setup, and then dump the ants from the old outworld into the new one. But the second that I started unscrewing the nest, I realized that the ants were right in the way, and the moment it came loose, they exploded out, swarming across my table. At this point, I was beginning to panic, as I tried to dump the ants into the new outworld while scooping up the ones that were trying to make a run for it, and I was getting stung in the process. I then realized that I had forgotten one crucial thing, the escape barrier. I rushed to apply the barrier, and then I turned my attention back to the old nest. But lifting the lid unleashed yet another wave of swarming ants as I placed the old nest into the outworld. I tried to gather as many escaped ants as I could, but I still kept finding stragglers in my ant room for days afterwards. But thankfully, the ants discovered their new nest pretty quickly, and I left them overnight to settle in, just in time for their next challenge. And by the next day, the colony was now fully moved into their new nest. I lightly decorated the outworld with a thin layer of sand, but not too much though, since I didn't want the ants digging new tunnels. The ants' second challenge was up next, and it was far more dangerous than the mealworm. This time, they were faced against a giant grasshopper. With a tough outer shell, razor-sharp mandibles, and powerful back legs. This grasshopper was fast, unpredictable, and unlike anything the colony had ever encountered before. And when I placed it into the outworld, the grasshopper froze, unsure of what to do. It only took a few moments for a few of the ants to spot the grasshopper, and when they started to attack, the grasshopper began jumping wildly around the enclosure, trying to escape, and alerting
Is he jumping or teleporting?
It didn't take long for the grasshopper to run out of energy, and that's when it made a fatal mistake. Spotting a small hole in the ground, it crawled inside, not realizing that it had just walked straight into the heart of the ant's nest.
The grasshopper looks like he's jumping or teleporting. Or stupid. Either way.
The grasshopper was now blocking the entrance to the ant's nest. So I grabbed my tweezers to pull it free, but the instant that I disconnected the tube, the ants burst out and instantly swarmed across my desk. In one last effort, the grasshopper jumped to try and get away, even landing outside the outworld, but it was too late. It collapsed on my desk, completely motionless. I returned the now lifeless grasshopper to the enclosure and I let the ants claim their prize. They instantly tore it apart and fed into the colony and successfully completed their second challenge. But now the colony must prepare, as their third and final challenge would be their greatest yet. It was now day 100, and the colony was thriving better than ever. Their numbers had continued to grow, and they were now ready for their final challenge.
Let's see what it is.
Here in front of me is a massive spider, with huge venomous mandibles capable of taking down any ant unfortunate enough to face it. This spider was fast and fierce, and the ants would have to work together to take it down, and honestly, I'm not even sure they can do it. At first, the spider tried to climb the enclosure walls, but found them to be too slippery to get a grip on. The ants chewed on the spider's legs, swarming it from every side, and the only thing keeping it alive was that the ants could only reach the spider's legs, but it couldn't keep this up forever.
Reaching his toes.
With each and every sting, the spider's legs grew weaker, and eventually it slipped and fell onto its back, and that meant it was game over. The ants quickly climbed onto the spider's body, stinging it from every angle. The spider fought back and even killed a few ants, but it couldn't match the colony's sheer numbers. The spider got back up briefly, but with the ants still clinging to it, the spider didn't last long. It once again fell, and there was now no getting up. The ants covered its body, made cuts, and began feeding on the spider's flesh. And after a few desperate final moments, the spider drew its last breath. And with that, the ants had successfully completed their third and final challenge. And now, the ants were free to feed on the spider's body to fuel their hunger and grow an empire.
Please subscribe.